There is nothing wrong with your internet. Do not attempt to adjust your settings. We are controlling the podcast. We control the squealing and the screams. We can make your heart flutter, your eyes blur from tears, or sharpen your mind to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit back. We are in control of what you hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your settings. You are about to experience the awe and mystery known as the female mind. You are now entering the Fangirl Zone. Hello everyone and welcome to Sci-Fi Talk on the Fangirl Zone, a podcast where we discuss shows on the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm Sean, Fangirl S.
And I'm Steve, and today we'll be discussing episode 9 of season 5 of Van Helsing.
Okay, so
that was an episode.
Was good. It was weird. Not like weird bad, but it's like, okay, I feel like they didn't have to do a whole lot in the now.
Very true. Very true.
But at the same time, I'm like, wait, did that happen or did they have to go back and re-record that? Because I felt like some of the stuff, I'm like, I don't remember that. But we're going way back.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, granted, it's not like Supernatural 15 seasons way back, but still, it's like, I don't remember that. Wait, did that whole thing happen? So yeah, there was a lot of that going on when I was watching.
I understand that completely, and it drove me nuts trying to figure out which episode all those flashbacks came from.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't even try. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember. Oh, yeah, okay. Because at first, when the credits were rolling is what got my interest peaked.
Oh, yeah. You just go, oh my God, look at everybody they're bringing back. Oh, this ought to be great.
Right. But first, it's like Kelly Overton. I'm like, yes, she's back.
Yes.
And then I feel like, and she's gone. What the hell?
Yes.
But yeah, everybody else is like, what? So yeah, I was pretty excited. And I know Steve and I were talking off air. And Steve, do you want to tell everybody how many pages of notes you had at first?
Yes. It was at 12 pages before I tried paring it down some.
So I just thought it was funny because I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, that's a lot of notes. And I'm just like, yeah, we can go a little less because everybody at this point kind of knows where everything falls. It's just
had a 2-hour podcast that nobody would want to listen to.
Yeah, we're not doing that, guys. We're not.
No.
So we are going to jump into episode 9, The Doorway. Vanessa wills Axel into the dark realm where they both discover secrets of their past that may help them in the future. Well, that sounded ominous.
Yes, it did. And I'm still not sure that both of them discovered secrets that could help them in the future.
You don't think so?
I think Axel may have helped Vanessa discover something, but then again, she kind of figured it out on her own, and Axel was going, are you sure about this?
Well, see, I felt like it was Axel that really got her there.
More than likely, yeah. I mean, and whenever she needed somebody, he was the one that was there for her. So yeah, being able to do what she did and get him there was important to the whole episode.
I felt like by the end, it was also kind of a signal to all of us that Axel is way more important than just the guy that started like guarding her.
Right.
So I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more there too.
I certainly hope so.
That's just my tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed in the credits was this episode was written by the original showrunner, Neil.
Really? I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So this might have been something that was in the plans for a long time.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, let's start at the beginning, shall we? Axel and Violet. And we didn't get any Jack and Ivory this week at all.
No.
So I think everyone's probably okay because we got so much other stuff. Alex and Violet, we see them at a little camping area because obviously they're walking to DC. It's a bit of a hike, right? And they're resting and Axel offers to take the first watch. But Violet's like, I can't sleep anyway. I'll do it. And he's like, yeah, but you said that last night and you never woke me up for my shift. So at some point, you're gonna have to sleep. And I'm thinking, how are you going to be any good fighting the Dark One if you don't sleep?
Right.
And Violet, is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Angsty?
Frustrated. Yeah. I think she's still hurting from Julius and not being with her sister.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of it is Julius, because when Axel tells her it wasn't your fault, she's like, yeah, got it. And just kind of walks away. It's like, yeah, just like your mother. And he kind of is just shaking his head as she shoots back with, well, you say that like it's a bad thing. It's like, all right. And then Axel's asleep. And he seems to be in a pretty deep sleep. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is he going to get attacked? What's happening?
Right, because we start seeing the REM eye movement.
Yes, but we also start hearing somebody call his name. And then it's like, that voice sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And it's Vanessa. And Axel wakes up in a field and it's daytime and he's calling for Violet. And I'm thinking, okay, wait, were they in that field? And I didn't catch that?
Right.
Because it was dark.
It didn't look like they were in a hayfield. It looked like they were in the woods.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm like, this is kind of weird. But he turns and he sees like this weird ghostly type of figure, which kind of reminded us of Debris.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that was somebody they didn't use in Debris and they brought that costume over. You never know.
Very true.
And it's like, okay, but the thing is kind of like shifting in and out of, I don't want to say reality because we don't know where we are.
Right. Phasing in and out.
Yes, there we go. And he reaches for his gun as the thing says his name and then disappears through a doorway, which again, very Channel Zero, just random doorway in the middle of a field.
Yes.
I'm like, maybe you don't want to go through there.
No.
And he hears somebody struggling to breathe. And of course, he's thinking the worst and that it's Violet and somehow they were attacked. But he gets over there and it's not Violet.
No.
It's Vanessa. We've only been waiting
8
how many episodes? And her throat was cut. It's like, oh my God, she's going to die. What is happening? And I'm thinking this is definitely some kind of torture for Axel, that he had been there and taken care of her and done everything, even when they were fighting, for so long. And then she's going to die here.
Right.
So somehow he puts something over the wound. I don't know what he was supposed to have grabbed.
Right.
And he takes her into a nearby house, which, wow, that's convenient.
Yes, it is.
And
Haven't
something
we seen that house before?
Yes, I would say something that I was thinking was, what's going on? This looks really familiar. And the picture of Susan on the table, it's like, wait.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Where and when the hell are we?
Yes. And he lays her on the couch and he's like, I'll get something to help you. And she grabs his arm. Like, no, don't leave. It's like, okay, she's going to die. Like, that's all I kept thinking. She's going to die. He's going to feel horrible. But when he removes the bandage, it's like, or whatever it was, because it was like a cloth. It's like, oh, it's already healing. Okay, I guess we should have known that. But Vanessa's like, how did you get here? And Axel's like, I don't know. I was hoping you'd be able to tell me.
Yeah.
And Axel, of course, is like, where is here exactly? And Vanessa tells him, you're in the Dark Realm. And, oh, how do I know you're even here? This whole place is like from my past just to torture me. So you could be the same. Now, I was thinking at this point, because her hair, and I don't know why, it was just the hair that caught me.
Right.
I'm like, that's not her. That's the Dark One.
Right.
Like, I was thinking it was the Dark One trying to get information and somehow got into Axel's head. Because at some point he mentions the compass, which I think is much later. But I'm like, why would you say that? You don't know who this is. This might not be her.
Right.
Unless, again, some kind of feeling. They're connected. So I don't know. But I was still freaking out thinking, don't tell her anything.
Right.
I'm not a good person because I would have failed in this venture because I was 100% thinking this is a setup on Axel.
Right.
And Axel is asking her, well, what's going on? What's happening with the Dark One? And is that the Dark One out there? Or what is that thing?
Right.
And Vanessa is like, well, I think it's like a guard dog because it just kind of keeps me from escaping and going out the door. And I feel like I have to go out that door.
Right.
I'm sure they felt that way in Channel Zero too. Just saying.
Yes.
He asked a very poignant question. How does that thing know who I am? And Vanessa looked a little surprised.
Right.
He's like, yeah, no, it was something that was familiar because it said my name.
Right.
And it's like, well, I don't know, but we need to get past it and get to the door because I think that's the way out. It's like, and again, at this point, I'm like, that maybe that thing is Vanessa and this in here is part of the Dark One. That's where I was going.
Right.
Conspiracy theories abound in my head for this episode until the end. Well, actually, still at the end, I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
But Vanessa does tell him she keeps getting pulled to that door. It's like her mind wants to get back into the fight. But when she gets close, that thing keeps stopping her. And Axel's like, okay, well, how long have you been here? Maybe you're going crazy. And she's like, I don't think time really applies here.
Right.
And that's kind of funny because then I'm thinking back to everybody we've seen in the Dark Realm and how long they've been there and what happened. It's like, if time doesn't exactly apply, it could be a minute. It could have been eons.
Right.
So I was like, maybe that's why the Dark One is really kind of out there because she'd been in there so long.
Exactly.
And, well, here's just the elephant in the room, right? Axel's like, what is so special about this farmhouse? Why are we here? And Vanessa decides to come clean. And it's like, this is where Sam killed Susan. And I should have killed Sam, but instead I created a monster. And then we get our first flashback because I was thinking that Axel was with them at this point, but apparently no, if he doesn't recognize it.
Right. Yeah. He wasn't
because we flash back to season 1. It's like, and this is why I don't remember where everything happened.
Right.
And seriously, watching this, though, I kept thinking, I'm not sure if this happened or if maybe this was stuff we didn't see because it just felt new. But again, 6-7 years ago?
Seems that long, that's for sure.
So I understand why this just did not feel like really clear. But we get the episode where Vanessa lost Susan and planned on killing Sam, but ultimately didn't, but instead left him in the woods, assuming that he would die.
Yes.
You know what happens when you assume. I love the Dark Realm voiceover that we got throughout that.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, just Vanessa's like, okay, let me tell the story. Let me set the scene since you weren't there. And she tells him that she wanted Sam to suffer for what he did, but her anger and rage basically was just beginning of so much darkness. And we get the rest of the flashback with Muhammad and how he was hammering the cross into the ground because they had buried Susan. And he tells her she's here now with her family. And Vanessa's like, she loved this place. And I'm sure she'll be happy. But I'm like, oh, this is sad all over again.
Exactly. Yeah, we go through the entire range of emotions in these flashbacks.
And we see how it just keeps building and how you understand then how Vanessa changed so much.
Right.
Because at one point, Vanessa also tells Muhammad, yeah, it's just the two of us now. And that's when we hear Sam screaming. And she, of course, is like, oh, it's done. Well, is it?
Yeah. Nope.
Because we cut back to Sam, and that's when you see the feral, like, attacking him. And he yells for Vanessa, but things sound a little different.
Yes.
Because, of course, choices have consequences. Revenge, justice, they're not always the same thing.
No.
And then it goes back, and I'm like, oh, I remember. Because I remember us talking about Christopher Heyerdahl and how creepy he sounded as Sam.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when he turned into Vampire Sam.
Yes.
And that's what we hear because Muhammad's like, that doesn't sound right. And you hear Sam calling Vanessa and he's like, we got to go now. Yes. He didn't die. And it's like, oh my gosh. It's like all those creepy feelings of Sam came right back. It's like, yes. I forgot.
Yes, absolutely they did.
And we're still in the Dark Realm. Basically, we're in the Dark Realm for this whole thing.
Right.
But Vanessa continues on with, those were just some words for suffering. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're talking about everything you did or Sam? Because I feel like you can just use Sam as an equivalent for suffering.
Yes.
Because, yeah, he was not a good person.
No.
And so Vanessa, again, looks at Axel and's like, yeah, so I think I'm stuck in my personal hell. And somehow I got you here. Sorry, but hey, I can be a good host. Here's some coffee. And what is it? Greek mythology, I think, just kind of came back to me. It's like, if you're in hell, don't eat or drink anything because you'll be stuck there.
Right.
And Axel's like, damn, that is hot. And I'm like, don't eat it. Don't drink it.
Yeah.
I have way too much like random, I don't know, knowledge and thoughts of like these weird things that could totally piece together. And I'm like, don't do it, Axel. Don't do it.
Yeah. And of course, he gets burnt a little bit and Vanessa pops off. Yeah, it's hot in hell. You gotta go.
I wanted when ultimately when he ended up waking up, like him to have not like a burn mark, but like his hand red from where the coffee hit.
Right.
Like then he would have known it was real.
Yeah.
Because I mean, do you really know, even though you're like 95% there, right? By the end.
Yep.
It's like, I think that would have pushed Axel over. I don't know, maybe Violet would have.
Yeah.
Violet would have been 100% on board because she seemed really, I don't know, iffy at the end, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Axel again asked, do you know how I got here though, Vanessa? And I love Vanessa. I do. When she's like, you might not be here. You can be a figment of my imagination. And Axel's like, same Z's, because I don't know what's going on, but all I know is I left Violet alone.
Yeah.
And Vanessa then freaks out. And that, again, I'm thinking, this is not Vanessa. This is the dark one messing with you.
Yeah.
Because she asks about Jack and everything. And Axel just says, oh, she's fine. At least last time I saw her. We had to split up for safety. Julius died protecting Violet. And all this stuff happened. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Don't tell her.
Because I was freaking out. So
with what Vanessa says after this, it kind of calmed my fears of it actually not being Vanessa, because only Vanessa would say this.
You know what? You're right. Because when Vanessa says the only thing bigger than him was his heart, talking about Julius, I'm like, okay, I don't think the dark one would even be able to say that.
No.
That's a little bit too, like, diabetes for her. You know? I was like, no, too lovey-dovey. I can't do this. Yeah, that's what I was feeling. So I'm like, okay, wait, maybe it is her. Maybe I can feel safer. But again, if you're a fan of a lot of these shows that we talk about on our network, you understand why I was questioning everything.
Yes.
Axel does tell her the plan too. And again, I'm just like, even though I started to be like, okay, it's Vanessa. It's like, no, don't tell her the whole plan. Because he tells her, oh, we're supposed to meet up in DC and finish the thing with the dark one. We're going to kill her. And DC, why DC, you ask? Well, the dark one is in the White House and everyone is convinced that she's the president. And then actually, this kind of pushed me totally over onto the side. Like, oh, okay, it's Vanessa.
Right.
Because she's like, she's the president? When she was just so taken aback that the dark one would put herself in that position. And not just Violet and Jack can't face her alone. She's too powerful, because that could have been still iffy. But the whole, wait, she made herself president and people believe that? It's like, oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
And now I'm okay.
Axel really didn't tell Vanessa everything, because we'd hear no mention of the scroll or turning Bathory
back
to humans. So Vanessa
I feel like I was fitting those pieces into that puzzle just because it felt like it was all there.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. He doesn't mention that. And so there is still some questions. But I mean, Vanessa has a lot of the information, and I still feel like Vanessa's going to do something stupid, though.
Right. I mean, she could walk into DC and kill Bathory and destroy her, and then the whole thing gets blown up.
Right. And this is the point where we get another flashback. Season 1, was it episode 2?
Yep.
So it's like, oh, okay, let me go way back, where we see young Dylan. Basically, we go back to the very beginning where we see the attack on Vanessa and Dylan screaming, and ultimately the vampire being changed, which, looking back on it, it's like, okay, he was changed. Why at that point didn't something happen with Dylan? Like, I was kind of like scratching my head, because knowing what we know now with Violet and Jack,
right?
Why does Dylan not have some of this?
Yeah, really good question.
Because they still, I mean, it wasn't 100% dark one, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, that's weird. But again, we get the dark realm voiceover, and Vanessa's like, well, Axel, when I wasn't fighting everything that's going on, I was fighting to save my daughter. I wasn't even fighting to save myself.
Right.
And then you see, like I said, the whole change where the vampire attacked and then falls on the floor because of the scissors. But you also see the black goo that he coughs up. It's like, oh yeah, you guys started that early, grossing me out. Thanks.
Yeah. And he gets up and runs out of the apartment past Dylan.
And Dylan, of course, is freaking out and sees our mom with all the bites and the stomach scratches. And there's just so much blood. And
yeah, blood everywhere.
Vanessa could barely tell her to go find Susan and call the police and call your father. And Vanessa says, I love you, and dies. It's like, but But she didn't die. We know that now, obviously. Right. But Dylan had no clue.
Yeah, she went all Sleeping Beauty on us.
Yeah. And Vanessa's like, well, if I knew what was to come, maybe I would have wished it killed me and Dylan, and everything wouldn't have been so painful. It's like, oh, because the next flashback again, ow.
Yeah.
I forget how painful a lot of this show was.
Yes.
Because it's a scene where Vanessa had escaped and was tracking down Rebecca, and I love it. I'm going to kill you.
Yes.
She opens the door and Rebecca turns around with Dylan, who had been changed.
Yes.
And I'm really kind of surprised. I still am kind of surprised that they changed her, unless they had known something back then.
Right.
But I don't know. I didn't feel like Dimitri and Rebecca were super smart like that. Like, oh, this will come in handy later, but just happenstance.
Yeah, I think they got lucky and stumbled onto Dylan and then came up with the plan on what they would do to her.
I guess that makes more sense. Vanessa tells Axel when we were finally reunited, I realized how much I had failed her. Because you get to see Dylan greeting her mother as a vampire. And Vanessa has this kind of epiphany. And I don't know if it had taken her this long to realize it, or if that place had made her relive this so often.
Right.
That she's just finally come to terms with it. Because she says, you can't save somebody that's already been lost. A part of me knew that, but guilt isn't rational. And dark choices continued. And I'm like, that is really deep. And I feel like that part of that is just telling everybody, it's like, you can't always change somebody else who doesn't want to be changed.
Right.
It's like, okay, thanks for giving us all the information. But at the same time, it's like, this is really like a lot of salt in the wounds from us watching everything that had happened.
Right. This is basically giving us one episode to relive everything that Vanessa has gone through, so she ends up where she's at the end of the episode.
Yeah, like all the pain.
Yes.
So it's too much. Stop it. Because we get to see the desperation in Dylan's voice when she's like, feed me. And Vanessa's like, I can't because I could kill you. But then she ends up finding a survivor. And she's like, listen, I'm not going to bleed you out and you will not turn. Trust me. I just need to feed her. And I'm thinking, oh, that's just as bad now as it was then.
Yes, it was.
And except that she didn't check the guy and he had a gun and he shot Dylan. And at that point, she's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
She killed the guy. Well, didn't kill him, but slit his throat and threw him over to Dylan, basically. And of course, the road to hell, right? Paved with good intentions. Because she's like, I felt a dark instinct driving me. And the darkness had already taken my baby. And I couldn't let it take both of us. So going to season 2, because we had that break. Thank you very much for having us wait and stress. We get Vanessa telling Dylan that she's going to try to turn her. And even though she fought against it, she managed to turn her and she was back to human. At least we thought she was.
Right.
Because Julius is there. And I'm still questioning this. This has been how many years? And I am questioning what happened because Julius obviously is way older than Dylan. Like, in regards to having been a vampire for so long.
Oh, absolutely.
And Dylan coughs up the goo and she's back to being human and it's great. And you get to see how it goes where they're having a snowball fight like the next day. And you hear Vanessa, I got her back and my gift has washed away the darkness. We beat it. Yay. Except we didn't.
No.
Because when the clouds part and Dylan's just staring at the sun, which first of all, that was a bad idea anyway.
Right.
But she burnt up and like just turned into ash and disappeared. I still don't understand that. Like I said, it's been so many years, but if Julius was okay, I still don't get why Dylan didn't make it when she made it through the turn.
Right. What I believe actually happened was between Dimitri, Rebecca, and the evil doctor, they were able to modify Dylan's genes to where you couldn't completely get rid of the vampire virus.
Okay.
So even though Vanessa bit her with the magic bug, it wasn't enough to completely eliminate all of the vampire traits. And so being in the sun, which would do that to normal vampires before we had daywalkers, is what took out
right.
Dylan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot she predated the daywalkers.
Yeah. If they had found her after the Daywalkers, then yeah, we might have been able to inject her with something that would eliminate that, or inject her with the Daywalker serum and then have Vanessa bite her.
Yeah, that would have been good too. Yeah, like I said, it's been so long, I kind of forgot. And just because Julius was there and it was like showing everything, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, okay, now that we kind of talked it out, sometimes that's all you need.
Yep.
Kind of like Axel here telling Vanessa, listen, we need to get through that door, but we need a plan. And Vanessa's like, hey, I've tried everything. And as soon as I get about 10 feet from that door, that thing pops up. And Axel's like, well, maybe it'll be different this time because I'm here. And of course, Debbie Downer, well, probably not, but Jack and Violet need my help. So we need to try to do this, I guess. It's like, all right, how do we break out of this mental prison here? And it's like, I don't know. It's always like every time I try, something bad happens. So I don't know if she's like every time she tries, she remembers something bad, because we kind of got another flashback to Vanessa, Julius, and Doc finding Vampire Axel, who of course is like, just leave me be. I am tired of you and this crap. And I loved it because it's like, how did I get here? I still don't know. And then you start seeing this, and I felt like pieces started to fall into place, because you hear her say, even at our lowest moment, we were always together. And it like some unexplainable tether connecting us. And the tether started out as duty, and it did get corrupted, turning to hate, and it's changed again, and we're back together. And this is why I started to think by the end, like, Axel is way more important than we've been led to believe so far.
Right. Yeah. He may be her, like she said, her tether.
It's like her true north.
Right. And that may be the tether to keep her from completely going dark.
Because, I mean, we even seen when he went dark side, basically.
Yeah.
Because it was after Scarlet died.
Yep.
And we have that flashback in the woods where Axel's determined to make good on the promise of, if I see you again, I will kill you. And just the fight scene, and how Vanessa was like, I'm not fighting you. But even as he pins her with a knife to her throat, she's like, go ahead. What's it going to do? All it's going to do is make her sacrifice all for naught. Right. And that's when he kind of, I don't think he forgave her, but he realized that she's not lying.
Right. He can't kill her no matter how much he wants to. She's too important to the world.
Right. Even though at this point, because that was what, season 4?
4, yeah.
So that was just last season. But at this point, I don't think we still knew everything, because that was early in the season.
Right.
But still, it was not great.
No.
And Vanessa does eventually apologize that she brought Axel there. And I love it. He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, when I was dying, or thought I was dying, I wish you were here.
Right.
And just when she said that, I'm like, yep, there's bigger connection than we know.
Right.
I want more of Axel's past, but I don't know if it would make sense.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we have enough time based on the episodes, but I also don't know if it would make sense, because if he doesn't know, it may be even further back.
Right.
It's like in his ancestry.
Yep.
Like, what if he is somehow related to the guy that was with Bathory?
Right.
And I can't remember that guy's name to save my life. Okay. But I'm like, what if that's what it is? And it's somehow through all of that, which I feel like would make a lot of sense.
Oh, sure. Every Holmes needs a Watson.
I loved how they were playing off each other, because I just felt like it was so much more, what am I looking for? I don't want to say smooth, but just it felt
comfortable.
Right. Yes.
It felt comfortable between them.
Because, you know, I love it.
Especially after this last scene that we see, they come back to it, and it's like, all that is in the past. They've redefined their relationship with each other and gotten over all the hell that they've been through.
Yeah, when he says, you know, your hell has always been my hell, Sleeping Beauty, I'm like, aw, I don't want them together. I want them together, but not like together.
Right.
You know, it's like, no, that would be weird. You were with her sister. Right. But you need to be together, because I feel like, yes, you're each other's, like I said, true north, and like the guiding star. And so they finally, well, we think, kind of figure out everything, because Axel's like, well, what are you thinking is happening? And she's like, well, if it's not the Dark One that created this place, maybe I created it, like breadcrumbs to get out.
Right.
It's like, what? that doesn't make sense. Sounds like you're grasping at straws. She's like, well, hell, I've tried everything else.
Yeah.
And it's all because, and I don't know if it's at this point or in a few minutes down, when he just says like kind of like a throwaway line, which turned out to not be a throwaway line.
Right.
But Vanessa does say, I don't think I need to fight the monster. It's like, what? Well, why am I here if you're not fighting that thing? And Vanessa mentions that she's been fighting the darkness and she's gotten off the slab. And if you can't beat it, it's like, wait, no, don't say join it, because I'm like, don't, what? But
that's what clicked in her head.
Yeah, because she realizes she's been fighting the darkness since she was a child. And then again, go way back where we see young Vanessa when she lost her parents and meets that dark figure, which I thought we had said way back that it was Bathory, but I mean, maybe not, especially because of everything that plays out here.
Right.
Yeah, she says she was never scared.
Yeah. In this episode, we had no idea who Bathory was because this was season 2.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But she wasn't scared of whatever it was. It just felt familiar, like a missing piece of her. And she's seen it later on in the woods. And the darkness felt inescapable, like it's wrapping its arms around me, a cruel comfort. And again, she had seen it here and there, but was never scared of it. So that just made me feel like, okay, maybe it wasn't the Oracle, but when it speaks to her, it sounded like the Oracle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that the entire time that she saw that thing, it was the Oracle.
Or maybe the Oracle was like watching her through it or something.
At least.
Just a thought. Yeah. But Vanessa makes a promise that whatever you are talking to the figure, I will find out. And it's like, I think you know, deep inside, you know.
Right.
It's like, because then we get season 3 where Scarlet dies. And it's kind of because of Vanessa. I say that because technically she kind of took her own life, but she did it using Vanessa's hand.
Right.
So it's like, kind of weird. But there it is again, right? Vanessa totally believes the loss, the pain, everything. As much as I wanted to believe it, I wasn't destined to be the light. And that is where the throwaway line comes in.
Right.
Because Axel's like, you were supposed to be the light. And it's like, there's nothing but darkness in you. It's something along those lines.
Right. Yeah. After seeing Scarlet die, that's one of the first things that came out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And the next line is, if I ever see you again, I'm going to kill you.
And that's why I'm like, you think it's just throwaway, but then there's her epiphany that what if that thing out there is the darkness that's in me?
Right.
And you can't have light without darkness.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, okay, that's not according to the Jedi, but okay. But Axel isn't so sure, but it's like, well, you know what? We don't have a choice here, so let's go. And Axel's like, okay, I'm glad you figured this out and you brought me here, but I don't want to watch you die. We have to have something else. Maybe, I don't know, some kind of mental construct so you don't lose your head.
Right.
It's like, listen, I don't want to do this. You don't want to watch me do this, but we really don't know squat. So we need to do this. So, all right, well, we're just going to do this because ignorance is just a lesson to be learned. So let's go learn something.
Yeah, I loved how Axel goes, who's Master Sui?
Yeah.
And I immediately said, well, I know who he is. That's the one who taught Vanessa when she did that time jump back to Lillian in Chinatown.
Oh, I was wondering. I'm like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, when she had to beat one of the first of the elders.
Oh, well, you know what? That makes sense. But they start walking to the door, and what's going to happen? Well, that thing shows up. But hey, it doesn't kill her right away, so that's a bonus.
Yep.
And Vanessa says, there's no need for disguises anymore. I know who you are. And the thing basically phases into Vanessa. It's like, oh, and you're back for more, huh?
Yeah.
And I love Axel's like, holy shit, you were right.
Yeah.
I love the look on his face. Okay, I just have to say, and I know it had to be hard because obviously there's the double who's standing there to do stuff.
Right.
But him just looking so completely surprised. Great acting there. I'm just saying it. I'm not being sarcastic because I think I had probably the same look on my face. So I thought it was great. And then you have this very interesting conversation between Vanessa and Dark Vanessa about you can never defeat me. I never needed to defeat you. Well, hello, you fought against me and look at what has happened. Your life has been filled with pain and failure. And regular Vanessa is like, yeah, that's my problem. I thought I was supposed to destroy you so I can become the light. But that's not the goal.
No.
It's like, we need to be one. And I'm thinking, very yin and yang here, right? Because you have to have both. And I love it because Dark Vanessa's like, you understand that I'll be your death because you still think I can be defeated. And I'm thinking, that's not what she said.
No.
And of course, me and my smart aleck ways, I'm like, you sound like a retail customer that doesn't listen.
Yes.
But we have an interesting little fight scene between the Vanessas. And Dark Vanessa does end up going after Axel.
Right.
And regular Vanessa stops her. And it's like, no. We're not doing that because we're not trying to destroy me, okay? Or destroy you.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. Well, I'm not the light and I'm not full darkness, but without you, I'm not complete. So, hey, we get to suck Dark Vanessa inside. It's like, what?
Yeah. Holy shit.
And it sent Axel like flying backwards.
Yes.
And when you see Vanessa, her eyes are black and I'm like, oh, crap.
Right.
But when Axel's like, hey, you okay? I love it. Really tentative. It's like, crap.
Yeah. I'm not getting out of here, am I?
Right. She's like, yeah, I'm okay. I think so. So let's do this. And you see the door open in all the weird colors. So I'm like, all right. So they're going to walk through and then where are they going to be? I'm like, they're going to end up right back at the field, right? Or wherever they were hanging out in front of the campfire.
Right.
But Vanessa's like, yeah, no. When I go through it, you'll end up back where you were. I'm like, that sucks. You're just going to ditch him? After all of this, you're just leaving him there? And Axel's like, okay, are we going to meet up? I'm like, okay, you're totally ditching him after everything. That sucks. And Axel's like, whoa. What's going on? It's like, well, all right, fine. Let's meet up in DC. And doesn't he tell her to meet at the sundial?
No, he doesn't mention the sundial, which I thought he was going to.
Okay, yeah, just meet up. Okay, that could be anywhere. Yes. Not like DC is like a block long, okay? It's a pretty big place.
Yeah, and they don't have the compass anymore, so it's not like they can pull that out and say, okay, she's that way. But then
again, he seems to be connected, so
yeah, I think
maybe he is the compass.
Yeah.
So Axel, at least having the presence of mind to say, hey, you're not going to just be able to stroll up through all the military to the Dark One and be like, hey, what's up? Let's fight. So you need a disguise. And Axel's like, I've got the perfect one for you.
Yes.
And that's when you see Vanessa put her hand on his head. And I'm like, what is this crap?
Yeah.
She's psychic now?
Yeah.
But then again, everything that happened in her head. So why not, right?
Absolutely.
So we cut back to, I guess, the real world.
Yeah.
And Violet shaking Axel, telling him to wake up, which he does. And Violet's like, you were having a nightmare and I couldn't wake you up. Sun's already up. So who knows how long this has been going on.
Right.
And Axel's like, it wasn't a nightmare. And he tells Violet what happened. And I love it because Violet, like I said earlier, was a little skeptical. But had he had that burn, I think it would have worked. But listen, Violet, after everything that's gone on, much like Axel said a few episodes ago, really? This is the bridge too far?
Right.
Like, we're going to meet her in DC. It's like, okay, but why didn't she come here? Because, strength in numbers. It's like, because she has a plan. And she did not share it with me. Yeah. So I guess we have to trust Vanessa, much like I've trusted you and Jack all this time. So there we go. I love he does say, too, that she never was a big sharer.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, well, but how do we know that darkness didn't control her? It's like, well, she's the one in control. You can count on that. I don't know. You had a lot of faith because I was still like,
well, he's known longer than Violet has.
That's true. But it's still like, that was probably a lot of darkness. So it kind of worries me. But at the same time, I think with all of them together, that'll probably make a big difference.
Right.
And Violet, okay, I have another question. It's like, listen, just trust her, okay? I know I do. And somehow that gets Violet like, oh, well, okay then. Just wish I knew where she was. It's like, right. Yeah, you and me both, kid. And then we get to see the portal open in DC and out walks Vanessa and she stops because you see the Capitol in the back.
Right.
And she turns and kind of giggles, which I'm like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't think we've heard her giggle. And she morphs into Nina. And it took me probably a good 5 minutes to figure out who she morphed into, though. I'm like, who is that? I'm like, oh, right.
But she looks like Nina before she was a vampire, so I don't know how that's
she's very clean.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hosed myself off to be presentable, something.
Right.
But it took a minute. It really did. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So this was crazy because, like I said, we just had the whole gamut of emotions.
Right.
And just so much pain. It's like, you had to show us all the worst stuff that happened. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. We had to understand Vanessa's journey so she would get to where she is right now.
It was just painful.
Yes, it was very painful to watch all of that.
Yes. I'm like, why? Why do you do this to us? But I really enjoyed it because it's really, I think, pushed everything along. And I feel like it was a way to tie up a lot of things.
Yep.
And I'm still like, wow, that was a lot that happened in this just hour show.
Right.
It just seemed like so much.
Yeah. And you can't blame Violet for being concerned about Vanessa being able to control the darkness.
Right. Because she's felt the darkness herself.
Right.
Although she is much younger and hasn't had to deal with it all her life. So there's that.
Yeah. I definitely think that everything we saw in this episode was to show that she has been through so much that, yes, she is now much stronger and can handle it.
And I 100% hope that that is true. Because if it ends any way other than that, I think everyone's going to be like, what just happened?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know how we feel. We want to know how you feel. So shoot us an email at sci-fi talk@fangirlzone.com. That's SYFY talk. We want to know all of your thoughts, your tinfoil hat theories. What do you think is coming? What do you think happened? Anything that we missed, because we will share that and we will answer you. And we just want to know because we know we're not the only ones that have our minds reeling from everything that's going on.
Right.
And while you're at it, if you can rate and review us on both iTunes and any other platform you find us on, because good ratings and reviews help other fans of the show find us. Tell your friends about the show. They can totally binge watch 4 seasons and the first half of this season, or more than half at this point, catch up with you. And so we can all be astonished together by the time we get to the end. We, of course, hope you're enjoying the podcast as well. Don't forget to check out our website, www.fangirlzone.com. Our contacts page is there. You can find all the ways to contact us and tweet along with us. We love that too. And we, of course, are answering everybody who tweets along with us, in case you're wondering. So for this episode of Sci-Fi Talk, I am Sean Fangirl F.
And I'm Steve. It's a little Betty Crocker for the dark one, don't you think?
And until next time.